Hey folks, good evening, welcome to the stream. Thanks very much for your patience while I was sorting everything out there. I did have a few technical difficulties prior to the stream. For some reason Twitch did not want me to go live, which was bizarre, and then all of a sudden it did go live and I hadn't got the right stream set up, so anyway, we're all sorted now. First things first, big shout out to Dogfrog, who was first tonight, so thank you very much for joining Dogfrog nice and early. Also hi to Anarchy, George, Mr. Petrov, Alchemist KB, Jeff Leopard, Wedio Blanche, Luke Devios, Geo who made it, Max Surfy, The Gout, Karcher, Tuxkey, Odin, Clockwork Mini, 10 Strong, Lorenz Codes, Dianact, Clavier, Heine Bush, 10 Strong, I think we've already said some Enemy's Friend, and whoever else, Tyler Dens as well, whoever else is doing, Frisco Belt as well. So good evening folks, glad to see you all online today and all ready to watch me. Heine, apologies if I keep pinging you, but if you're in my server, that's what happens when a group buy is ending and a prototype build stream starting. It's just one of those days where two things have collided, sadly. I promise there won't be any more pings for at least a week. I got a ping in Jay's projects but not in TC Discord. Yeah, the TC Discord bot should ping shortly. When that pings, that's when we'll actually start the stream and do the build stream. But before that, we've probably got a few things to talk about and catch up on. Quadenka here as well saying J-01 Club represent. Absolutely, my J-01's looking decidedly dusty at the minute actually at the side of where I am. So I have it on a stand just to the side here. But since I got my my J-06 in last week, the J-01 has been decidedly dusty. I'm not sure if that's going to show up. Let me see if you can see the dust on this. I don't know if you can see, but it is rather dusty as a J-01. But this is the J-01. The board we're going to be building today is the J-02, the kind of sequel to this, which is a 60% board, and I'll share that with you shortly once the stream starts. J06 typing please. Maybe later. I'm probably going to start to do some recordings of all of my boards and start to do some sound typing tests, so I'll probably do that. This is a Vince Blackboard with OG die sub keycaps. So these are PBT keycaps, they're OG cherries. In UK ISO, they were new in box and I'm really proud and happy with them, and the board does sound good in my opinion at least. Let me go somewhere where I can type. One of my favourite boards already, and I've only had it about a week and a half, so yeah, I really love that board, but we'll cover that on a different stream. Clavier waving from Top Clack as well. Good evening Clavier, good to see you my dude. Excuse me, still getting over my cold. Dogfrog says Rose Gold Singer represent. That means I now know who you are, Dogfrog. Hello Sturby. My Rose Gold Singer is on the wall just there next to the split board, so you see the split board just here, while the board just there is my Rose Gold Singer. Probably easy to spot because it's one of the few ANSI boards on the wall. Let's see what we're talking about in chat. What sets are you guys looking forward to in October, says Enemy's Friend. Personally, I'm going to be buying Cafe this month. That's probably the big buy for me. I can't think of anything else I'm going to join just yet, but we'll see and we'll have a look what else comes out. Quite a bit of mic desync. Okay, let's see if we can fix that. Are you seeing me first or are you hearing me first? Let's work this out. Let's get this fixed. If you tell me in chat whether you're seeing me first or hearing me first, I can try and fix that. And this is where it takes everyone to come back. Avocado Toast, thank you very much for the sub. Let me clap and you can tell me. Yeah, it's hearing first. Okay, let's slow down the delay on this. Okay, I'll try this now. Is that closer? Is that closer? That's close. Nice. Yes. Okay, let's go with that unless someone says once more. There you go. Nailed it. Okay, cool. That was just 1,000 milliseconds. 3 seconds. Perfect. Right. Okay, cool. It's close enough. You guys are telling me it's fine. It was 100 milliseconds, not 1 second or anything else like that. So you guys don't know how to count or judge time, but we'll go with that. Early by a minute amount. Okay, well that's fine. Early by a minute amount. I'm not going to spend too much time tweaking it. I think there's a difference between how Twitch interprets my video and audio. So even if I record it directly first, it's slightly tweaked when it comes to it. But then every time Brian logs on to the same settings and into the same Streamlabs session, he changes all the settings. So then I have to undo them, unpick them, and reapply them. It is what it is. It is what it is. Mac Surface says he's got no idea what's coming in October. I just buy stuff. Yeah, that happens. That just happens. Who's going to make a music video with the clap clips? Yeah, maybe. Maybe someone should. Talisman Solution, thank you very much for the 1,111 bits. That's very much appreciated, my dude. Gotta love those bit donations. Thank you very much. Nice in the tip jar down here, wherever it is. Yeah, there. If I put, yeah, there it is. Somewhere. It's difficult to judge because I see the video on a delay, so, and I see it really tiny as well in the top corner, so hard for me to judge where I'm typing on the screen. This stream is brought to you today as well by my keyboard, who are down in this bottom corner. You can see them just here. Thank you very much for them for donating the keycaps that we're going to be using today, which is GMK9. So thank you very much to Necro Woman X and Necro Man. Thank you very much for all your support as we carry on going. Heine, I didn't catch the Coventry match. No, I have no idea what the score was either. I didn't even catch the rugby, and I didn't catch the Formula 1 today. So all of the sports that I follow, didn't catch any of it. My wife and I, we were out with a family function today, so I've got lots of sports to catch up with during the week. So please, no Formula 1 spoilers, because that's one I really, really care about. Today, when we get into the stream after the bot's pinged, if it's not pinged already, we will be building the J-02. So this is the J-01. This is my first board. We are carrying across the design elements of this board into the second board, and we'll talk about that and how that came about as well. So things that we see today on the J-01, such as the nice thick brass middle, the magnetic pen rail, which just lifts out like so, the brass forehead that runs all the way underneath at 2, and then the kind of wedge shape on the base. That all carries across in terms of its design language into the J-02, as does the mounting system. So this is isolation mount. It's very much completely isolating the plate from the case to reduce the sound and transfer of the sound from the plate into the case. Also uses a carbon fibre plate, and again you'll see that that's copied again from this board to the next. This is just taking the same design, the same aesthetics, and putting it into a completely different form factor, and a different key set as well when we finally get around to doing the build. So if you're interested in the J-01, you can go and review the old build streams. There's two, if I don't drop it. There's two old build streams. One where we built the inks and carbon fibre plate, and the second one where I built a Holy Panda on brass plate. Today we are going to be building with inks again. I've got a big pack of them here, completely stock, and I'll talk about why shortly. And again, we're going to be putting it onto a carbon fibre plate for this prototype, and I'll cover that shortly. Let's just catch up with chat. Gouty saying hi to the Necros. FizzKey here as well. Do I have enough time to make a coffee? Yeah, you've got enough time to make a coffee. You can always catch up on that. Nice artisans, by the way. Thank you. Yes, I have some on my Macropad here, just some of the Kippuras that I collect. I've got an ETF set on here. Yeah, I've got a few artisans. I'm not a massive collector. I've got a couple of hundred, but I do like to use artisans where I can. Clockwork says, spoiler alert, Jay's dog ate the J-02, so he's not going to show it until the next prototype comes in. Shame, I'm afraid. I will be showing it today. LBA base is here as well, saying hi Jay. Yeah, this ETF set is hot. So this is one of my favourite ETF sets. Let me show you this. So this is Bog Apple. There's only 3 caps in this set, so it is a full ETF set. Is this one? If the camera decides to agree, but I just love marbled sets, and the colours in this one are just so intense. I think when I count, there's like 27 different colours in this. So yeah, absolutely in love with this set. And there's just the 3. There's the Fukuthulu, the Menlo, and then the other cap as well. So yeah, Oxy's here as well. Good afternoon. Mr. Petrov says we haven't seen Jay's dog for ages. My dog was on stream last week. She's been a bit naughty today, so she's not in here today. Not a massive collector, only a couple hundred. Yeah, well, I've probably got about 35 Cthulhus and about 35 Kipuras, and then the rest, maybe I've got about 7 to 10 ETF sets, I think, something like that. A few Brobots and other bits and pieces as well. Nothing like, I'm still missing a load of key things like Last Pilots. I don't have a Last Pilot yet. I'm still missing a ton of stuff from Gaff. I don't have a Vukboy. I'm not going to say the actual word, but I don't have an F-Boy or a couple of other ones as well. So yeah, yeah, my collection is what it is. I try not to share it because people just incessantly ping me for stuff if I do. But yeah, Last Pilots can be expensive. Yeah, I don't have one yet. There is a couple that I have my eye on that I want. As soon as I see one come up, I'll probably try and pick one up. But we'll see how that goes. Yeah, I mean, I've got this as well. In fact, Tyler Durden's might recognise some of these. This is my little macro pad I use at work. There's some interesting artisans on here. This guy's upside down, otherwise he doesn't fit with that one. They're slightly too big for each other, so that's why it has to be upside down. So Tyler Durden's might recognise some of those. So there we go. But yeah. Whitsellers is here. What's up, guys? A happy Sunday. Yep. Jay's stocking up when the apocalypse happens and keycaps become the currency. If only that was the case. If only. Okay, guys. I think it's time for me to actually start to show you something now. We've been streaming for about 10 minutes. The bot has pinged, so pretty much everyone who's going to join is going to be joined by now. I'm not sure how many we're showing for at the minute. Probably 100 people, so I guess something like that. 90-ish people, I think. Yeah, so I think now is the time for us to start to look at the J-01. So the first thing I want to do is show you the plate. This is the carbon fibre plate, and it's a straight 60. Your first thing you'll notice. 7U bottom row, ISO, fixed ISO layout. There was a little bit of miscommunication between myself and the guy who's designed the PCB, so we decided to do a prototype PCB which was just a fixed layout that I wanted, and then expand the PCB later on depending on feedback from the interest check. And I wanted split right shift, and the PCBs come with just right shift, full right shift. So I have had to hack at the carbon fibre plate, so it's not terribly neat, but I'm sure you can see there where I've had to make some changes to the carbon fibre plate. Don't worry, I did it in a fully exposed area, mask on, out in the open, outside, Dremel tool just to tidy it up as much as I could, whip that all apart. Now everything fits as it should do. In terms of the rest of the design, you'll see that there is a corner cut off from the plate here, and also a rounded edge there. You'll see exactly why those are like that when we start to look at the internals of the board. But yeah, definitely looking forward to showing you this and getting it built. The other thing we've done as well is included, you can see just here where my skin's showing through, we've included acoustic cutouts just to help the sound on larger keys. So you'll see these dotted around, especially on the bottom row, and then around the side of the space bar as well. So that's that. If anyone has joined my carbon fibre plate group buy, which is over now, this is the type of plate you'll be getting. This is what they look like. I think there'll be 1.5 and 1.2 millimeter plates made. So yeah, all looking good from that perspective. That's the plate. In terms of the PCB, this is just the prototype PCB. So this just offers basic ISO and C and very little else, just a single bottom row and the full right shift, which was the miscommunication error that I mentioned earlier on. The final PCB will offer split or full right shift, split or full backspace, and that's about it. There's very little else I'm going to change on this unless I get the feedback in the interest check to make any more changes. No one's yet suggested that I offer a 6.25U bottom row, and to be honest, I'd rather not at the minute. I'd rather just offer the 7U bottom row, and the reason for that is because there'll be wing keyless tops, which will just remove 2 keys, and there'll be HHKB tops, which will just remove 2 keys, and then there'll be straight 60 top, which will be just as this. So today we've only got the straight 60 top. The order has gone in for the HHKB and the wing keyless tops, and I'll have them on build streams later on before the group buy runs as well, so people can see that and have a look before the purchase, if they should want to do so. The only other thing to call out on the PCB is that you'll notice there's no USB port, and that's because we're using a JST connector on the underside, which is dead center of the board in terms of left to right, horizontal, and then the vertical is just set slightly further to back. Still unsure whether to keep the JST port or just have it solder onto the main PCB. I'm not quite sure how I want to do that. So if anyone has got any feedback or thoughts, whether you prefer a JST connector or you prefer not to have that, then I'm entirely happy to have a look at that. But that's currently where we're up to. So that's the plate and the PCB. As you can see, everything lines up rather nicely in terms of that, except for just over here where we've got a huge gap for the full right shift, because they originally had split right shift. But hey, we live and learn, and that's what prototypes are for: failing fast, making amends, making improvements, and making sure that we can go forwards. Let's just catch up with chat just before we start to show you the gaskets and the main board, and then we'll crack on with the build afterwards. That is one nice plate. Thank you, Dogfrog. Thank you very much for that. Necroman's here as well. Good evening, sir. So for those that you don't know, the EU vendor for this board, the J-02, will be my keyboard, as you can see down here. They are, by way and afar, they are one of the best vendors in the EU. They often support mine and Brian's streams, and we hope to keep that relationship going. And they were kind enough to reach out and offer to help me run the group buy for this board, purely because I don't have the time to do it myself. I just want to offer this out more to the community than I did the J01, which is very limited in terms of units. So we want to make sure this is a lot more open. Let's catch up. Wow, just in times of the main event, says Amir. Thank you very much. Breathing in carbon fibre is how you get superpowers out. Yeah, I was very careful. People were a little bit worried when I told them that I was hacking it. Mexoda with the eyes. Thank you very much, dude. OWM Monday says 4mm carbon fibre plate when. It's doable. It's been done. I have some. Maybe in the next carbon fibre group buy, I'll offer 4mm plates. We will see. Frisco Metal says Satanicist is God. Well, Alchemist KB is Satanicist, so they are the same people, so just different usernames between Discord and Twitch, so same person. And when we look at the board, we'll be talking about Satanicist in a little bit more detail as well. What else are we talking about? 7U works great here, says Mr. Petrov. Absolutely. No one's asked for a 6.25U bottom row yet on this board, so until it gets asked for, it won't get added. Not Geo says split backspace, split left and right shift, normal and stepped caps, and C and ISO enter with Sanger bottom row. Yes, so the only other thing I didn't mention on this is that this is the full caps lock position and not the stepped, but the stepped one will be available when we actually get to group buy. So yeah, because I prefer stepped. Someone did a Dremel there. Yeah, I did a Dremel. Lex, I did a Dremel. But yeah, we'll see how that goes. Luke Taylor says won't be at the Stockholm meetup, sadly. Well, we've also got the Leeds meetup in the UK as well, which is on the 26th of October. I think all the tickets have gone now, but if anyone does want to turn up, just say hi and I'll make sure you get in. You might as well say the EU vendor for everything keyboard related. Nearly everything. I think most people tend to go with my keyboard now over some of the other vendors, which is really good. Oh, Monday says, who will be handling the North American group buy? We'll be talking about that during the build, probably while I'm doing the soldering. So if I forget to talk about this, please do remind me. Is carbon fibre that dangerous? When you're trimming it and cutting it, yes, it can be. So the little bits and pieces, it's very much like asbestos. You can get really tiny particles and it can do damage to your lungs. So if you are cutting it, once it's in this position, it's fine. Even if you snapped it, you'd be all right. But it's when you're dremeling it and snipping it and things like that, you just need to be a little bit careful. There's certain rules and regulations you have to follow if you want to do it on a professional level in the EU. Sky says, good evening, I'm just lurking as I'm watching a CSGO match at the same time. Nice, that's always good to multitask. Enemy's friend was thinking about asking for 6.25, but thought you were not offering from the get-go. There's probably a reason for it. It's just personal reasons. The only one of the three layouts 6.25 you will work on is the straight 60, and I want to do wing keyless for my personal one when I keep one, and HHKB seems to be the most popular other option. So yeah. In terms of the plates as well, the plates will be fixed. There'll be two plates that come in the group buy. You can have either an ISO one or an ANSI one. They will be carbon fibre and they'll be fixed in terms of the layout. So if we only have one bottom row layout, that's the only option that'll be there. They'll have an option for split or full backspace. You'll have either a fixed ANSI or a fixed ISO one. The fixed ISO one will have split left shift as standard. The ANSI one will have the option for both, because some people like to split on HHKB, and the only other thing that won't be fixed is the caps lock, which will offer stepped or full caps lock. So there'll be 2 plates, and that was how the split will be. Okay, I think it's probably time to show you the gaskets now. So the gaskets come in 3 layers. I've attached all these together to try and help me show you guys how it's going to work, just with a little bit of super glue. I'm going to try and get the manufacturer to put sticky back plastic on each of the layers so you can see. But as you can see, if I hold this up close, you can see that this is 3 layers thick. Hold on. So you've got an outer layer, an inner layer, and then a base layer. Now the base layer is probably difficult to see, but the base layer underneath is slightly wider than the top layer. So this layer at the bottom is slightly wider by 1mm than the top layer, and you'll see now from the inside that there's a groove all the way around the inside. That's because the gaskets are designed to hold the plate in between them. So if I slip that into there, you can see that it's designed to slip inside, so that the gasket sits tight all the way around. Now, when I show you the board, there have been some changes I'm going to make to the gaskets, because I've noticed some slight issues that I need to fix. Okay, and then I've also stretched these gaskets a little bit by playing with them too much as well. So you can see there that the gasket sits all the way around the plate. It sits above and below it. It hooks onto it on both sides, holds it into place, and then the middle layer just runs all the way around the edge to make sure that compression is nice and even. So in terms of that, as I say, the layers will come in 3 parts, but I am hoping to get the manufacturer to offer sticky back plastic on them, so effectively they'll all be layered together before they even ship to you guys. So they'll come in this way. You'll just put the layers around the plate, and you'll be good to go, rather than messing around with 3 different layers. So I'm going to take that off for now, but that's how the gaskets will work. And the way they work inside the board is there's kind of like a little lip that runs all the way around the edge that the PCB sits on, so it can't push through. So you can't push it through into the base, even though it would fit there. But to explain how that looks and works more, I guess I'm going to have to show you the board. Try and catch up on my thirst. Just have a quick look at chat, see how you guys are talking about J-02 unlimited pre-order TBC, but it's going to be certainly far more open than the 15 units that were made for the J-01. It's going to be significantly more easy to get into. Shows a Doggo Oil Riot, maybe at the end of the stream. Should I glue my J-01 stuff together to make life easier? Yes, it does help on the J-01, yes. Oh, what do you know? I was able to change my username. Nice, Scouty, nice. Nebulent as well, thinking the same thing around a glue stick. Yeah, you can use a glue stick, or you can just put dabs of super glue all the way around, use a spreader, and that works quite well as well. So you can just dot super glue on the edge, use a spreader, put the second layer on, and it'll be dry in 3 or 4 seconds. Pretty sure his exact words were, use a shit ton of glue. No, don't use a shit ton of glue. Try not to use too much. Are there many other boards which does the gaskets? Yes, there's lots of gasket mount boards. Number 1, number 2, from Keycool. You've got the Polaris from KBD fans. You've got thousands of boards that use different variations of gaskets now. The E6.5 that ran on an O-ring. Some of Zondat's new boards using gaskets. Some of the original OTD boards use gaskets. All sorts of different options and opportunities now. If you want to have a look at how the J-01 was done, it was this method but slightly different. You can check that out on the old VODs as well. Yes, and Nebulance says in this style it's just the J-01, J-02 and the Kepler family. Yeah, so those just are the only ones where it has this all the way around and fully isolates it. Oh, Satanicus has changed his username as well. There you go. Take note, new name. There we go. I don't have to call him Alchemist KB. He's all Satanicus now. But there we go. Well done. Thank you very much for sharing that, dude. Okay, without much further ado, it's time to show you the board, talk you through some of the design decisions and how the board's structured, and then we'll crack on with the build. So this is the board. It's not screwed together, so it's slightly moving apart. Excuse the handprints there. As you can see, it does keep the black and brass of the original J-01, and it also keeps it on all of the edges as well. So this isn't screwed together, so please don't complain about it if it starts to slide around. So there we go. That's the board here. In terms of the parts, I'll show you them one by one. So in terms of the top, it's got the pen rail on the forehead as always. You can see that runs all the way across the board, just in line with the 60% function as well. So it's nice and square and even. The bezels are about 0.5U wide. They run across all three edges of the board, and then slightly mirrored just here as well, but it gives you a nice area on the forehead for the pen up in this top section. So there we go. In terms of the design on the inside, you'll see that there's a groove that runs all the way around here. That is for the top layer of the gasket, so the gasket will sit inside that. As we've shown you before, the gaskets are layered, so the top layer will sit nicely inside that. Difficult to show you like this angle. So you see that that just slots nicely in there. One layer, not quite as thick as the nitrile rubber. So the nitrile rubber is 1.5mm. This is just a 1mm drop, so that gives us compression against the nitrile rubber. The other thing you'll see as well is in the corners these four risers. Now these four risers are basically tapered all the way down, and that's how the screws hold into the base, and those run through the brass. So the brass effectively sits in around these. So these go through the brass, and the brass sits level on top of here. So there we go. Show you from all the different angles. There we go. Nice and tidy. So as I say, that is the kind of the design secret in terms of holding the gaskets in place. And to be honest, what I'd like to do from the group buy perspective is have the gaskets pre-fitted to the top as well, so you don't have to have too much to worry about from that perspective. So that's the top piece. In terms of the brass, as you can see, it's a solid lump of brass. It has a nice thick brass forehead. Bear in mind this is a prototype, so there are some scratches on the brass on the internal faces that won't be there during the group buy, and all of the external faces are the kind of quality you can expect to see from the group buy itself. First thing I want to show you is you can see that the pen rail is sat here. Now that does protrude through that hole that we showed you just before. As you can see, that all slots together just nice and simply. Okay, let's try and remove that. Now in terms of the pen rail, it is attached by magnets, so you can see underneath there are 6 magnets in the base, and there's also 6 magnets that sit in the pen rail. These sit slightly off from the pen rail just to give the pen rail a little bit more height through the board. So you can see here that there's slightly raised from the surface. They do need tapping in with a hammer. I've just pushed them in on my desk. They're all pressure fit, so this is all dependent on tolerances. Now some of the buyers on the J-01, which use the same mag mounting method, did notice that some of these did require either a fair bit of force to put them in, or a tiny dab of glue to keep them in as well. It is something I might change for the group buy if people don't like the magnets and just put bolt holes in and they can just be screwed together. 3 bolt holes down the centre might be an easy way of doing it from the underside of the brass, which we'll have a look at in a second. I like the magnets. Some of them need forcing in, and the difference here is that the machining tolerances are perfect on the brass. It's actually the magnets themselves that are all slightly different. So this one here did need a tiny bit of resin to glue it in. In fact, you can still see the residue on the top where I use some epoxy to just glue that one in. But as I say, that just nicely sits on like that. As you can see, that's nice and robust. It takes a fair bit of force. You can actually lift up the whole brass piece using, I'm not going to lift it too high just in case it drops, but you can lift up the whole brass piece using the magnets. So they are pretty sturdy and pretty firm. Okay, let's just see if there's any questions, how people are looking at this. George says 19mm or 19.05, it's 19.05 standard switch spacing. Odin says clean and nice, thank you very much. Gerbo says how much will the board cost? To be confirmed. I want to keep it as cheap as possible. I have got an EU and a US vendor. I want to talk to both of them, come up with some pricing ready for when the group buy launches, but from my perspective, I'm not expecting to make money out of this as such. Maybe cover the cost of the prototypes, and that's about it. That's all I want to make out of it myself. The rest of it will be then driven by vendors and actual production costs. I can give you the price of what this prototype cost me, but that isn't indicative of what the actual final price will be either. Satanikis can't wait to see this in person. Yep. Pretty good gasket would be a real godsend. Was the hardest thing to get right on the J-01. Yeah, I want to really approach that because I know when I built the J-01 I knew how it went together and I didn't struggle too badly, but from speaking to some people who have built their J-01s, I know that I need to try and address that and make it a little bit easier. I'm just going to glue them all. Yeah, gluing them works well, as you've seen. I've already tried that. Could have magnets on one side and ferrous screws on the other. Maybe, yeah. I'm tempted to just change it for bolts and put it through. Sub 400 is probably not realistic. No, it's going to be higher than that, I would suspect. Dark Connect, you will have that included, right? Yes, but it will depend entirely on how my keyboard at EU wants to run it. I'll announce all of those kind of details prior to the group buy launching, and that'll be updated on the Geek Hack thread, so don't worry. Once we've got all of that information, it will be shared on there before we go to group buy. What's the advantage of the rail being removable? So the reason why I want to do the removable rail is because I want to ultimately offer the design files for the rail so that people can go and have them produced in other materials if they want to. Some people have already talked about having brass ones and copper ones made for the J-01. Some people want to look at plastics and other alternative parts as well. So the reason for having it removable is that people want to be able to do that kind of thing. And also it's just fun and kitchen, it's nice, and it's an easy way of putting it together. When I did the first prototypes for the J-01, I had 3D print ones. The tolerances to have a single piece of brass and put it all together weren't particularly easy, even though it's 3D printed files. So I was a little bit worried about that. But magnets are fun, different. Not everything has to be one piece. And plus it reduces machining cost as well, because these can actually be milled on a diagonal from the same piece of brass here, so they actually reduce cost, whereas if it was one piece the brass would have to be thicker and you'd have to go all the way down. So if you can imagine that if this was one piece of brass, you can see that it's this thickness and it's this thickness, so you'd have to mill it all from one piece of brass, and you'd have to mill down and along and around. That piece of brass would be a lot bigger, and as I say, this piece of brass can be taken from the diagonal as well, so it's cheaper to do it this way because you're using two pieces of brass to get the same effect. So that's the middle piece anyway, sorry, that's the pen rail anyway, we've talked about that now. Necroman saying, yep, that included. 10 Strong is going to be back in 15 minutes. How do magnets work? I have no idea. I have no idea. Will be the lower rail for people who don't use pens and just want a brass line flush with the forehead. No one's actually asked for that lecture. The first person to ask for that. I will definitely consider it and see if it's an option, but no one's asked for it. But yeah, a brass just accent piece that was flush might be quite nice. Yeah. Maybe that's something we can have a look at. In terms of the middle piece, as I showed you before, it is quite thick, it's quite chunky, it's quite hefty. This forehead acts as an internal weight. That does two things. One, it acts as a dampener for the whole board, and secondly, it means that I don't have to have a removable weight on the bottom. I'm not one for adding weights for the sake of adding weight. This is a practical, rationale reason for doing that. Just talking about some other parts, you can see here that this groove runs all the way around the edge. That is for the gaskets to sit in, and we saw the mirror of that on the top piece. Now the difference in the height differential between all three isn't the same as three thicknesses of gasket, which are 1.5, 1.5 and 1.5. It's actually 3mm from that edge in there up until the inside of the top piece as well, so that the whole of the 4.5, 1.53, 4.5 millimeters of gaskets are under decent compression to hold them nice and tight and snug. As you can see here, the 4 points around the outside, that's where the top slide into. So we saw on the top that we've got these points here that are raised off the surface. Those sit through the holes, so they hold it all nicely in place, and that means that you then get a nice even finish around the edge of the board, holding everything flush against this edge. Now you can see some machine marks on here as well as fingerprints. Those machine marks will not be present on the final production version, and the scratches that you might see on the reverse of this as well, those won't be present either. The brass will be finished as it is on this edge, so you can see here that this is nicely smooth, sandblasted finish. It looks really, really nice and neat. It is clear coated as well, so you don't have to worry about handprints or anything else. So there we go, you will have that kind of finish across the whole brass piece. So we talked about the brass piece. I'm going to pop that to one side. Just going to show you the bottom piece now as well. So as you can see, we do use a breakout board. This is a daughter board using a JST connector to connect it to the main PCB. That's USB-C. The board will be fully USB-C, as you can see there, with a nice tight fitment. And in terms of this This is basically made by Martin. This was made for the J-01. It was made by Martin, and we'll talk about the designers and people that have helped me on the other bits in a second. And this is from the J-01. It uses the same footprint as the AIO3, standardized door to board and everything else. So all the same cutouts are there present from the J-01, purely because it helps that. Just in terms of the base as well, you'll see here that there are 4 recesses where the screws sit. So you can see that that's slightly recessed in all 4 corners. You can probably see it better in this one with the light. That's just so that when the top's in place, the extensions are actually slightly longer than the brass piece, but you can see that holds together, doesn't move around then, and it just gives top and bottom a nice solid connection to each other, and the brass sits squarely in the middle. In terms of the inside as well, you can see that there is a groove on the inside. That's just to create space underneath the brass to make sure there's space for the PCB and everything else. And then there's this gap underneath, which is then a further few millimeters down. Now this is effectively an acoustic cut that's made into the case to allow sound to develop across the case. One thing that the isolation mat gives us is it takes away all of the transference of noise from the plate and the switches and the keycaps into the case. So what you need to do is give some room underneath the board for sound to develop, and that's exactly what this is. In terms of this space as well, there will be an option and an opportunity to have this filled with foam if you'd want to. I'm not going to provide this for the group buy, but what I will do is I'll provide a step file that will be exactly the size of this with the exact depth, and you'll be able to go somewhere like MK Ultra or another foam cutting service and have something that's fit custom to go inside it. Personally, I don't think it warrants it, but some people like to do that, and I'll make sure that file's available as part of the group buy as well. Looking at the outside, first thing I want to show you is that we've got this nice wedge shape underneath. I'm very much a fan of boards that you can get your fingers around the edge to lift them off the desk, and that carries across the edge and all across the back as well, with the USB port being tucked snugly underneath here as well. So that's all nice and neat and tidy. Back to the J logo on the base. It's the same logo as on the J01. Excuse my handprint, it is rather warm in this room, so I am really sorry that my hands are a bit sweaty. Try and tidy them up a little bit so you can see. So the board does have the same J logo on the base. It's the only logo there. Obviously it's my first initial, it stands for J, it's the J02, simple as that. The logo won't be infilled, it won't be brass, it won't be anything else, it will just be a nice 1mm deep etch, as simple as that. Also, for standard points for the bump-ons, don't want to use anything that's not difficult to get hold of. Bump-ons are easy to replace, easy to offer replacements as well, so there we go. That's all of the parts of the board that we've talked through. The only other thing I want to talk about as well is the screws and bolts that I'll be providing will be Torx. I don't believe in hex nuts. I'm not a big believer in them. You can't really see that, but it is Torx, I promise. It's too shiny to show up. And they'll be made from titanium, which this is provided by a company that I use in the EU. So that's the board in detail, that's all of the different parts, and that's what we're going to build today. I'm just going to pop this back together for now and move it to one side. Okay, we'll take that apart as and when we need to complete the build. But I see what you mean. The idea of having a flush one like that would be quite nice. I know I'm not holding this together properly, but having something that was just flush, quite nice, Lex. So maybe I'll have a look at that. Okay, so that's the board. Put it to one side. Let's catch up with chat and see what you guys are talking about, because I'm conscious I've just chatted for about 10 minutes about the different board. Thinner brass as well for machining. Yep, absolutely. Yeah. Instead of having one big thick piece with the pen rail coming off of it, it's just one nice thin piece. Listening to Jay talk while editing photos is so soothing. Well, I'm glad that's the case. Oh, Monday says that's insane. Thank you very much. Should I play your issue on my Singer? Is that risky? Nah, you'll be fine. Mr. Petrov says I like the idea of flush brass accent too. Yeah, I'll take a look at it and see what that's the case of. CRI Hex says, where are the parts machined? It's a Chinese fabricators, but I'll be working with the vendors to support whether it's the same factory or use a different one depending on what they want to do. I'd like to carry on using the same factory because I trust them, but we'll have a look at that, and that'll be a commercial decision as well as a practical one. Tree material says Lex, no tree material, but you could do a middle and pen rail from tree material if you want to do. Wish I had a board that needed that, but yes, sure. Doing anything while listening to Jay is better for it. Oh, thank you. Middle connectors look so clean. Yep, I like that. Martin's a good chap. He is. Yeah, he's a great chap. Quernick says marble resin cast pen rail. Need to get a glove on that. That's a great idea. That's a really good idea. Artisanal pen rails. Yes, definitely need to take a look at that. MK Ultra is closing business. He's not. He's just having a week off because he needs to catch up. He's not shutting down his business, as far as I'm aware. Yeah, I'll reach out to Glove and see what we can do. What's the angle of the board? 7 degrees. Handprints, yeah, Pog. It's really warm in this room. My hands are quite sweaty. I'm a sweaty person, which is one of those things. What does a J mean? It means jump off a cliff. No, it's just my initial. Simple as that. Will HHKB layout be available? Yes, so in terms of the tops, we will have the straight 60 as an option. There will also be a HHKB blocker one, which will have blockers in this sort of area here, and there will also be wing keyless, which will have blockers somewhere around here as well. So all of those three will be available during the group buy. In terms of colours, we're probably looking at black, space grey, and one other. Still need to decide on the third colour, but I don't want to do too many colours and make it too difficult to deliver. Can we Cerakote over the logo? Would it disappear, or is it 1mm enough to keep it visible? Cerakote is thinner than anodization, so you'll be more than fine. That wouldn't make any difference. Nothing on the top to infill. Are you sure that's a board design you want to support? Yep, absolutely. Infill's great, but it can be a pain as well, so there we go. Good idea should be warding with something like a freeboard. Not sure I agree with that. Also with this with a 4mm brass plate would be my end game. I don't want to use it as a brass 4mm end game, so that would be just far too rigid to type on. I've got a Zephyr that's really, really firm to type on, and I like a firm typing experience. The idea behind using this type of gasket with this type of plate is that carbon fibre is quite stiff. It's pretty much as stiff as most brass plates. It takes a fair amount to bend it and twist it, but it's not a lot less brittle as well, and it doesn't transfer and have that ping noise. It's quite a nice, almost plastic feel, very similar in sound to POM. But the idea behind the gasket is the gasket will just completely isolate the plate from the case. It's not going to touch the case in any way, shape or form. And it's also going to offer a bit of softness in terms of the bottom out as well, because there's some compression available in the gasket. But because the plate is so rigid, it's not going to deform the plate or move the plate around. It's not going to be like these plates where you can bend them and twist them like the nylon would have had on the Prophet. What's going to actually happen is as you press anywhere on the board, the whole plate's going to move up or down slightly, and it's just going to soften out that typing experience. It's going to feel like a really soft sandwich mount board, purely just because of this. In terms of the files and everything else, the file for the pen holder and the file for the plates will be completely open source, so you can get anything else that you want to do yourself, any of the materials, but 4mm plates won't be supported and just won't work in this kind of design. 100 view hype, nice. Glad to see we've got 100 viewers. Welcome all. Thank you for watching. Still want to make a Damascus pen rail? Yes, Damascus stuff soon. I am working on some stuff in the background on Damascus things, but not for this particular one. Tyler Durden subscribed at tier 1 for 7 months. Thank you very much, man. Genuinely appreciate the support. It says the hype continues. Thank you very much. Space grey or black, these are the hard decisions that matter. Black with GMK white on black, yeah, that would work really well. Acidic Pure says, lube my first Switch while watching, seems to turn out pretty well. Nice, well done, man, well done. That's no big game, still 100% in on this beautiful board. All the film 5mm plates, lol. Cool, okay. So that's in terms of where we're going to end up, that's in terms of where we're going. I hope that helps you guys understand the design for the board, my thoughts behind it, the ideas for why the plate is mounted in such a way, and what I intend that to impart on the board as well. So we'll leave this here so it's nice and pretty looking. It's not fully pressed together, so we'll look at that later. So I'll pop this to one side as well. That's the gaskets. You will notice that I've trimmed the corners off of these gaskets. I do need to rework the gasket files and tweak things just on the insides a little bit. I was a little bit ambitious in how tight the tolerances could be on the gaskets, and they're probably a little bit more fragile, so do need to work on that, but that's something I'll definitely take a look at before the group buy runs, so you don't need to worry about it. In terms of the build, as I say, we are going to be using stock inks. The reason for that is because this is a prototype plate and prototype PCB. I'm going to use this to break these switches in, and then when I actually build the board in its final form, I'll remove the switches and I'll have a revised plate and a revised PCB, and I'll use the same switches then, and I'll lube them all at that point as well. So these are going to be completely stock switches that are going in this board, so do bear that in mind when we look at the sound test as well. The first thing we're going to do though is, as with any build, is we're going to put the stabilizers in, and then we're going to use this new lubing method, which is really cheaty, but I'll show you that in a few minutes as well. But if you've watched any of my streams over the past couple of weeks, you have already seen the new cheaty lube method, which seems to work relatively well. So these are GMK screw-in stabs. I have removed these from a previous build. They're already clipped. They've already been lubed once. They just need a tight top-up because they've been stuck in storage for a little while. So I'm not going to be showing you guys the details behind that today in terms of clipping them. It's the same process as I've used on every other stabilizer, so feel free to go ahead and review some older videos if you want to see that. Just screwing these down, as always, not going too tight, just screwing them down tight enough to work, tight enough to hold the stabilizer in place. If you go too tight, you risk damaging the PCB, so just go finger tight with anything like this. Keep it nice and simple. Doesn't roll away. That's one stabilizer in, so that's for the backspace. We're then going to have a stabilizer for the ISO enter, the ISO enter key, which will pop in place now. Would rubber dubs help for the corner of the gasket sort of to guide it? Maybe, but it's fine when they're all glued together, so that's fine. Spicy Shaman says, Jay, can I borrow a board for the meat? Sure, why not? Here's my J1 with just that combo. Oh, Quir showing off now. I see how it is. I see how it is. Okay. So as I say, any problems we find in today's build, guys, is part of the prototyping process. I've already found problems with the plate, which means I can fix that. Already found problems with the gaskets, which means I can fix that as well. This is what prototypes are for, so any pitfalls we do fall into purely are learning experiences, and that can only be a good thing. 100% renders, 100% facts, absolutely. Stock inks are really good. Yeah, they're not bad at all. Not bad at all. Stop flexing, Quir. Inks are one of the few switches that are not terrible to use stock. Absolutely, which is why I'm using them. Which is exactly why I'm using them. Okay, who's my stabilizer plug? Faxa 360 in the EU is who I use for my stabilizers. Just while I'm doing this, I was going to talk about it while I'm soldering, but I want to talk about the PCB designer and the case CAD engineer that I've been using for this build and this design as well. So firstly, I want to shout out to Elliot. So Elliot has done the 60% PCB design. So this is a completely original 60% PCB that he's designed from scratch for me. The original daughter boards are from Martin, who's done the plain 60 and otherwise. But big shout out to Elliot. He's 16. He's in the UK. I think he's 16, maybe 17 now. And he's an extremely talented individual. This isn't in QMK yet, so I can't type on it as such. I can't show you guys it working, but it should be in the very near future. I kind of hurried him up a little bit so I could do this build before I went on vacation next week. Okay, so we're going to have our shift key in place as well, and then the final thing we're going to do is pop our spacebar stabilizer in here too. No, but it's very pretty. Nice. Have you had a problem with Gatink leaves being very loose? Not personally. I haven't as yet. So Elliot says he's still 16, yeah, but he is great. So if you guys have any PCB design needs, I would very much recommend reaching out to him. In terms of the case itself and the CAD, it's no secret that I cannot use CAD to save my life. I'm very much a pen and paper kind of guy. I draw all my designs on pen and paper, always have done, always will. I'm trying to learn CAD, but it's not easy. It takes a long time. So in terms of that, Satanicist, Alchemist KB, whatever he's called now on Twitch, he has been my absolute godsend of a CAD guy. He turned all of my original design ideas from the J-01 into the board that you see today. So he has been my absolute rock, and I just want to thank him from the bottom of my heart. And he will be getting a free board out of it because he's such a legend and such a big help. Yeah, really, really happy with the support he's given me, the time he's given me, and everything else that he's done to help me out in preparation for this group buy. So thank you very much, Satanicist. Big thank you to you, dude. A lot of people have been asking if Teslatron's been involved in this board. He hasn't at all, zero involvement. He's not even seen the files for this board. He was involved in the J-01, that finished December 2018, and he hasn't been involved in any of my design decisions since then. So yeah, just big shout out to Satanicus for picking up the slack there, showing me what's possible with the art format, and really taking a handle on the design and moving forwards with it. So yeah, fully happy with that. So that's the stabilizers in place. We are going to use my new lubing method, which is really cheaty, but these have been pulled from a build, so they shouldn't be too bad. I'm just going to squeeze some lube into the back of each stabilizer, into the front of each stabilizer, and as I say, this is more topping up these stabilizers than anything else. Again, just going to go into the back of each stabilizer and into the front. And as this board isn't going to be a fully working one, and it's only for the sound test, for now, I'll go with that. As I say, we do need to make some changes to the BCB, as I'm a terrible communicator at times. And once we've rectified those, the second build, which is when we'll do the HHKB and the wing keyless tops, that's when we'll be able to show you one fully working, and it'll be all ready and sorted within QMK and all of those good things. As you can see, just pushing some lube in there. This isn't this is really cheaty way of doing it, but it seems to work 99% of the time. So I'm happy to keep doing this rather than use a paintbrush now. Your mileage may vary. If this works for you, great. If it doesn't, completely understand. Okay, there we go. That's always all nicely lubed. This plate is really rather tight in places. It's one of the parts of carbon fibre that can be quite a struggle. So I do need to be careful just pushing this on. There we go. So as you can see, that all fits nice and neatly in place now. The plate is sat as it will be above the PCB. All of the stabilizers are in place and everything is working nicely. Nothing's restricted, all the movement's there. So all looking good from that perspective. Next job is to start to put some switches in there. As I say, these are completely stock. I haven't opened these. These ones are from Novel Keys. Thank you very much, Mike, for sending these out. And we're just going to put these in. Whilst I'm doing this, I'm going to try and catch up to chat, see what we've been talking about. ISO, doing the proto right. Well, ISO is my preferred layout. I don't think there's a right or wrong when it comes to anyone's choice of layout. I think anything is fine as long as it's the layout that you like. That's all that matters. Just going to put a switch in each corner just to make sure everything's nice and neatly aligned. So pushing the switch into the plate first, and then from the plate into the PCB, making sure that they all sit nice and flush. There we go. Do one in each corner, do two in the centre, and then we'll work our way around the rest of the board, pushing these in. And whilst I'm doing that, I'll catch up with chat, so you can see that these are all nice and flush. If the camera decides to focus, give me some focus, camera, there you go. You see those nice and flush into the plate and against the PCB. And then again, you can see, it might be easier to show you on the front actually. Same again here and here. So there we go. Excuse me. Okay, so next Wilbur, he could well be with the next Wilbur. He's very good, very talented. Is Elliot. He's a great PCB designer, and I'm very happy to be working with him right now. So if you guys have any PCB design ideas, feel free to hit him up. Big shout outs to Martin as well. He's been a rock for the J-01 PCB and for the daughter board design. So big shout out to him as well. Starting to make some progress now, getting some switches in here. As I say, these are completely stock inks. These have not been used in any way, shape or form in any other board or anything else. They've not been taken apart, they've not been lubed or anything. These are completely stock. What does building a keyboard yourself cost? Anything from nothing to $1,000 more. It depends on the cost of the board. This is very much a prototype, so this is a one-off at the minute. It's the only one that exists. In terms of the prototype costs, the PCB was around £100 for the design and one soldering. The gaskets were around £100 because I had to buy 10. The case was around £650 including shipping and taxes. So all in, and probably we start to count switches and keycaps and everything else, it's probably £1,000 that I've spent on this British GBP. So it's probably about $1,150, I'd guess. So I'm not sure what the exchange rate is at the minute, but somewhere in that sort of range. But that's bearing in mind that this is very much a prototype, and that a full and final run will not be that price. It'll be a lot cheaper. There are a lot of economies of scale when we start to look at prices. So just doing 100 of a board, for example, will reduce the price significantly. 1 million Canadian pesos. Yeah, this is about $1 trillion in Canadian, I think. Okay. Just scrolling down. Nebula says, can you get an affiliate link on Amazon for a similar bottle and lube? Yes, I'm working with Brian to actually have a Top Clack affiliate Amazon link. So we will get that up and running in the next couple of weeks. Absolutely. US Amazon. Yes, it will be US Amazon, yeah. Do you inject the lube into the back hole as well as front hole? Yes, I do. On a daily basis is here as well. It's saying hi. When QMK is supported for this build, would you be able to flash this very board? Yes, once QMK is supported for this build, we'll be able to flash it. This is all fully built, it's fully soldered, it's ready. You know, Elliot's sorting out all of the other bits in the background now to get the actual PCB working. So sad I can't show you that today, but I did demand that I got to build it today because I'm away for the next 2 Sundays. There's no build streams until middle of October now for myself. The next 2 Sundays are off the books because I'll be in Cyprus with the wife for her birthday. She turns 29 this year. Yeah, we will not be in the UK and therefore I won't be able to do any builds. I can't say approve of this lubing method yet, Jay. Haha. Yeah, that's fine. I do tend to still go back and lube with the brush, but these have already been lubed with the brush. These were taken from a previous build, so these were in another board that I've desoldered and removed them from. So it is very much just a case of topping up the lube in them, but I appreciate that, you know, if you want to do it better, you can. My subs are at least artisanal, hand lubed and not force fed lubed. Yeah, fine, that's fair enough. Yeah, I can't say fairer than that. On a daily basis, a 3204 or 3203 for Topa switches. Not a big Topa fan, but I would say 3204. Going to build an ANSI Proto this time, says Geo. Yes, when I do the HHKB top, that will be ANSI, because HHKB is generally ANSI. The wing keyless one will be my personal build for it that I will be using on my personal board when that finally arrives. So that one will be ISO. This one's a test build, and this one won't be a permanent build. There will be an ISO ANSI mix that Satanicist is going to have, but he'll be building that himself, not on stream. But we'll have pictures of that all before the group buy starts. Okay, starting to make some good progress now. I'm just going to try and force this switch in. This is the one that's going to cause any problems with this one. There we go. I didn't want to trim the way too much and not have the switch in contact with the plate because it will affect the sound, and I wanted the sound to be as genuine as possible, but it isn't the neatest job of dremmeling because of that, so I was a little bit worried it wouldn't quite fit. Okay. Can't you, in theory, make the firmware yourself without being in the mainline QMK? Yes, that's exactly what Elliot is doing. He's doing exactly that, and then it'll be pull requested into QMK prior to the board being released. This will be my first build with ISO. Nice. You don't have to build with ISO unless you want to do. Don't ever build something you don't want to use. That would be what I would say. I've never tried the heat shrink mod either, so I can't comment on that. ISO layout was the reason I got into mechanical keyboards. I wanted ANSI and could not get it. Fair enough. Fair enough. Alright, ladies and gents, I'm boarding a plane back to Chicago if I die. I love you all. Oh, well, safe flights, Jeff Leopard. Safe flights, my dude. I hope you have a good flight and it's nice and easy. Turbo lube stabs, unlubed switches. Yeah, I am cheating myself, but the aim for this quoting kit is to show everyone the board what it sounds like reasonably with a reasonable switch, and also to wear these switches in once I can use them, so that they'll actually be worn in and ready for my personal build when I do the wing keyless one in a few weeks' time. It's probably going to be November now, looking at the timelines though. What was the type of lube being injected into the stabs? Dielectric grease, just straight up normal dielectric grease. Nothing unusual, nothing different, just standard dielectric grease. Are Holy Pandas really so godly compared to other switches? No, I would say they're a mediocre switch at best. They're a good tactile option. I still think a Zelio V2 is a nicer tactile switch personally, but they would be my second choice. If I'm picking tactile MX switches, I would probably go Zelio V2, Holy Panda, and then a T1 switch. Those are my three in order in terms of favourite stock. Once lubed, I think Zelio's V2 is still far superior. I don't think lube really helps T1s. I think they almost feel nicer without lube, personally. Quernick is saying that's actually smart. I don't know what he's referring to. They're very different to Zelios and Sharper. Yes, they are. Yeah, the next build stream will be November for the J-02. That'll be when I get the wing keyless and the HHKB tops in, and I'll have the PCBs ready and some more plates by that point as well, ready to do those builds. Almost caught up now. Didn't learn that you meant to push the switch into a plate till it clicks. Yes, so the switch should clip into the plate, and then it should clip into the PCB, so you should have that nice gap between the two. So you can see the plate here and the PCB there, and the switch holds the two separate. So yes, that's how it should be. We're almost there with the switch inputting now. Almost finished doing this. Slightly bent pin there. Still not noticed any loose leaves, guys, but I haven't taken these ones apart, so these are from the original round of inks though. I think I've got these in another bag the same size as this left to go. Oh, it was meant in response to my explanations why I'm using the unlubed switches. Yeah, yeah, I'm trying to think ahead and multitask ahead months in advance at the minute, because I've just got so many builds to do, and I'm really excited for the J-02 and everything else, so yeah. Okay, so there we go, guys. That's all of the switches in place. As you can see, the fixed plate looks great. This is kind of what the plates are going to look like in this area here. You'll see the acoustic cuts, same around here. The only thing that won't look like this is this, because it will offer either split or full, and it will be fully machined correctly. So I do apologise that doesn't look quite right. Will affect the sound a little bit, but we're just going to have to assume that it's close enough. So I hope that looks good from your guys' perspective. I am going to solder this because, well, I think it offers a better opportunity to tell the sound when it's soldered. I think boards do sound a tiny bit different when they're not soldered. So, excuse me while I just grab my soldering iron and my other bits and pieces. Right, don't destroy half my desk while I'm doing it. Okay. Tectonic Plate 001, thank you very much for the 14 months of resubs. Really excited for this carbon fibre group buy. Yep, all closed just before the stream to the carbon fibre group buy. I'll spend an hour tonight sending out the first batch of invoices as soon as I can after the stream. The rest of the invoices will follow in the next day or so as I start to work through them. Okay. Sadly not. We'll hopefully going to one in London, UK soon. Oh yeah, there's a Leeds meetup. If you want to try some switches, if there's anything you want to try specifically, I've probably got it in this jar, so if there's anything you want to try, Sturby, then let me know. I can send you a switch to try. There is going to be a build with those switches at some point. We're just going to go randomly pick a switch, put it in the board, pick a switch, put it in the board. That's probably going to be my Doro 67, which is a meme board if I've ever owned one. Go knock on Jay's door. Yeah, everyone's always welcome. Yeah, everyone is always welcome to come and knock on my door. Okay, so now the first thing I'm going to do, as always with any build, is just go through all the switches, see if I've got any bent pins. I've already noticed one on this switch just here. Everything else looks okay. And I've got another one just here, so I just need two switches to pull out and put back in. Everything else looks good. Yeah, so just 2 switches to really quickly. This one here. So as I said, this board will work once all of the programming is ready for it. So that's why I'm building and soldering it today, even though these switches won't remain in this plate or PCB forever. Where was the other one that I saw? Right here. So this one just here as well. Come on. There we go. As you can see, that's just slightly bent. So I'm just going to put a nail under it, straighten it up. And then just watch when we push it back in, making sure that everything is nice, neatly aligned. Okay, so there we go. So now we are ready to solder. Just catch up with chat before we do. Satanicist is saying, you bring the switch tester to Leeds? Yes, he will be. He's got a massive switch tester. Are there any tickets for Leeds left? No, there isn't, sadly. You're even building it for me advanced. Wow, what a group buy runner. Very funny. Very funny. That's what all the ladies say. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Okay, so I'm just going to go through and really quickly solder this. As always, I'm going to start with 4 corners. Once I've done these 4 corners, made sure everything's still aligned nice and neatly, what we'll do then is we'll have a bit of a chat about the US vendor, which I'm ready and willing to announce today. If anyone's got any guesses, put them in chat now. Maybe I'll send a top Clack sticker to anyone who gets it right, or the first person to get it right at least. But yeah, I don't have many top Clack stickers left, so it'll have to be just whoever gets it right first. Okay. Okay. So there we go. So soldered. 2 switches in the center, 4 switches around the outside. Just checking now to make sure everything's nice and neatly aligned. As you can see, it is. Okay, so let's. Oh gosh, people are going nuts in chat. That's not my mouse. I'm fucking blind. That's not my mouse. Okay, so Deanact actually got it right at 9:10. First guess said Cannon Keys. The group buy will be run with UPass and Cannon Keys. So he's reached out to me today. We've had a bit of a chat. We spoke about a week ago actually, and then agreed everything today. We still need to sort out all of the fine print of the paperwork, etc. But yes, it will be running on Cannon Keys. So UPass will be sorting it out. So Deanact, if you want to whisper to me on Twitch or hit me up on Discord, and I will send you a nice top Clack sticker. I've got some just here, so you can see what you're gonna get. I will send you one of these lovely stickers. There we go. Okay, so there we go. Lots of other people said Cannon Keys as well, but Deanact was first. So well done, guys. Yeah, stickers are sexy. Yeah, they are. They are. Excuse me. MyKeyboard.eu is the EU vendor, yes, and Cannon Keys will be the US vendor. Alright, Quedek has got to go. Thank you very much for watching, Quert. I hope you have a good evening for the rest of your evening, and that you are fruitful at work tomorrow. So we're just going to carry on soldering the board really quickly, and then we can get on to the meat and gravy of this build stream, getting the damn thing put together and testing it out, seeing what the sound is like, seeing how it translates, making sure that everything works as it should do. And then from there we can start to talk about some of the other details of the group buy, such as the when. We've talked about the who, and can then talk about the when. And we'll do that right towards the end of this stream. Okay. I'm just going to go through, guys, soldering the row steadily. Again, big shout out to Elliot for designing this 60% PCB directly for the needs that I had, with the JST connector and everything else. Very, very appreciative of that work, dude. So thank you very much for your help and your support. Confused myself there because I've already done the backspace key when I was soldering the 4 corners. Okay, just going to quickly come along this row here. And again, big shout out to Satanicus for doing all of my CAD work for me, for both the case and the gaskets. Very, very much appreciated, my dude. You are a living legend. And also he's doing all of the CAD work for the carbon fibre plate group by at the minute as well, so he's amending people's plates, making sure they're exactly the layout they want. He's going above and beyond right now, guys, and he's quite possibly one of the hottest designers in the community in his own right. If you guys haven't seen his rain group buy, go check that out. If you guys haven't seen the OG Summer on /r/custom keyboards, go check that out. Because he has done some fantastic work there, and also look out for his upcoming board, the AKB65, because it looks fantastic. And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, that Elliot is the PCB guru for those boards as well. So lots of exciting things coming out of the UK and the EU over the next couple of weeks. So please do check those out, guys, and support the people who really deserve it. Mr. Petrov says very nice. Yeah, thank you very much. Is that another one? I'm not sure what you mean, 10 strong, but there we go. Gondolindrum's here. I'm going to say this right. The Brazilian. I think the Brazilian PCB guru himself. Okay. Which in fact he might have an interesting board upcoming himself quite soon, like Gondolindrum. It could be a doddle, you might say. Okay. We've got Yankar here as well. Big shout out to Yankar, another UK-based PCB designer. Yankar is quite possibly one of my favourite people in this hobby. He's such a nice guy, too good looking for his own good, and I'm looking forward to catching up with him at the Leeds meetup in the UK in a couple of weeks' time on the 26th of October. Definitely looking forward to that. Okay. If anyone likes ducks, you don't like ducks as much as Yankar does. And if you don't know what I mean by that, ask Yankar. In fact, Yankar, if you're watching, I actually have a duck for you that I bought the other day. So this is going to be really weird, guys, and I'm not quite sure why I'm showing this on stream, but Yankar likes ducks, and I bought him a duck the other day. So Yankar, this duck is going to be for you. It's pink, it's covered in love hearts. This is going to be your gift when you come to the Leeds meetup. So there you go, my dude. Dogfrog says, do you use flux when you solder, or is it a desonder or anything for you? I don't use flux, I use Royston cord solder, which has flux in it for all intents and purposes, but I tend not to use flux when I solder, and I don't use it when I desolder either. I tend to find that it's not needed for most through-hole soldering jobs like this. Okay, almost here with the soldering now, guys. Won't take me too much longer to complete this. Okay. Almost there now. And then once we've done this, we'll be able to get the case and everything put together, and then from there we'll be able to put some keycaps on the board and complete a end-to-end sound test so you guys can see exactly what the board's going to sound like, and I'm really looking forward to you guys checking it out and hearing it. Young says thank you so much. Yep. Rubber Ducky also fine. Yeah. Talisman, you might actually remember a film about it's called Convoy, and that had, I think it was Chris Christopherson in, and he played a truck driver, and his call sign was Rubber Duck, if I remember rightly. You might remember that. Not many other people in chat will, but you might. You're right, one does not need flux, but I do, just because I like it, kind of perfectionist. Love the flow when I use flux. Yeah, some people like to use flux, some people don't. If you're using Royston cord solder, you tend not to need to. As you can see, it's relatively quick and easy for me to solder. Without flux, it just flows down nicely. Okay, so that's everything soldered together. Now, as I did say before, I can't test this PCB because it's not fully set up in QMK as yet, so I have to bear that in mind. But what I can do is I can give you all the sound tests and everything else now it's put together. And when we do the wing keyless build and the HHKB build, everything will be ready and in QMK by that point, so we'll be able to show you the full end-to-end delivery process of the board. I saw a new Civic today, painted that pink with matching pink eyelashes. Nice, that sounds horrible. Man, I wanted people to buy me random birds someday. When that happens, I'll know I'll have made it. Nah, don't do doggy things to ducks. Okay. Only problem when using flux, you need to clean your PCB after, even if it's no clean flux. Correct. No, you didn't miss the gaskets. They're right here, Yankar. These are the gaskets here. I have had to trim them rather than using the hole punch that we discussed before. We'll talk to you about that later on because I'm going to miss a tweak of those. So just to remind folks, there are 3 layers of the gaskets. There's a wider layer that goes on the bottom, which is actually this side. There's a thinner layer that goes on top, and then there is an internal layer in the middle. Which I've glued all together, so you can kind of just see in there is a 3rd layer. See it better from this side. 1, 2, and 3, and the PCB and plate the plate does sit in between those and rest on there, and then yeah, all looks good from that perspective. So we'll be fitting that into the case shortly. That looks great, Yankar. I just need to tweak the design, simple as that, and I'll show why I need to tweak the design shortly. Dog Frog's got to shoot off, but thank you very much for watching, dude. Gouty, that's a big 10-foot. Okay, so he remembers it. Yeah, okay, so he remembers the film. Possibly the first time Convoy's ever been referenced in the history of Twitch. Quite possibly. Mac19 says, hey, I'm building a keyboard for the first time tomorrow. I got some gap yellow milky housings. Do you recommend me lubing it? And should I be concerned about screwing the switch somehow when lubing it? Okay, so first things first, I would absolutely 100% recommend that you do lube it. What I would recommend that you do is get 2 or 3, you get some lube, you test out different methods of lubing. Don't apply too much. It's always easier to add more lube if you find it's not quite right, but it's almost impossible to take lube away quickly and easily. So I would always recommend that you lube a little bit, put it back together, try it. If it's nice, great. Do the same on every other switch. If you find that it's not quite right, it still feels a little bit gritty, or it feels like it's not quite smooth, apply a little bit more lube and try again. Once you get to that happy medium, you know exactly how much lube you've applied, how much to put on it, where to put it on, and to carry on from there as well. I hope that makes sense for you. Yeah, it's not a quick process, as 10 Strong's saying, but it does take a far amount of time and effort to do that. So I would very much bear that in mind. Okay, so the next job now for us to do is to start to look at putting the board together. So I'm just going to pull the top off. So as I've said before, guys, the gaskets do sit into this area here. Now, one of the things that you'll notice is that I have clipped the edges of the gaskets down in this bottom corner. Now, originally they did have holes in, which were designed to go around these, these corner pins, but that doesn't quite work in some respects. So we've had to adjust the design from that perspective as well. So what I've done is I've just trimmed it so that it now sits like so across the corners. The gasket sits in that gap just there, so you can see I've now trimmed it like so across the corners, so there's no issues with clearance and tolerance. Come on, focus, there you go. So I am going to have to tweak the design of the gasket slightly, but not to worry, it's easily accommodatable and achievable, so I'm not too worried about doing that. So the next job is to put the gaskets around the PCB and the plate, sorry. So I'm just going to stretch this into place, push it on where it needs to be, around there. Same in the bottom corners. And as per the J-01, this is where things start to get rather fiddly and rather difficult, but I will try and make this as easy as possible in the group buy. As I say, I do want to have the gasket at least aligned into here with sticky back plastic. Hopefully there'll be a piece of tear of plastic on the gasket and then I'll just pop it into place. The same for this one here, and then all you'll need to do is rest the PCB in, put one around the edge, and then put the top on, and it should all just fit just fine. So that's all now in place. I'm going to lift that over, pop that onto the top like so. Just make sure that's all sat nice and tight around PCB in the plate. Pull that hair out of the way. Once we've done that, take away the magnetised pen roll. Then what we're going to do is we're going to take the brass insert, we're going to line that up with the 4 pins. And we're going to push that down. We're going to make sure we're not trapping any part of the rubber. You'll be able to feel it as soon as it is. So there we go. That's pretty much held in place. You can see now that we've just got, in some places the gasket's just nipping through, so this is just a case of making sure that we're pushing it into place, making sure it's nice and even all the way around. Just use a thin bit of metal. And so I do want to take the fiddliness out of this over the course of time, so I do want to make this nice and easy for people to do at home. Make sure that it doesn't cause any problems or any challenges. Again, I don't think I've got that quite right. So the easier I can make this for you guys, the better. And once it's all glued into position, there shouldn't be too many challenges. Okay. As you can see, what I'm doing here is just pushing it all down into place, nice and easy, making sure that all the overlaps are as they should be. This is where it takes me 10 hours to get this all working, guys, and you all lose interest and decide to never watch me do a build stream again, but hopefully we'll get there. Okay, so this is just where the plate's just falling out of the gasket because I've had to stretch these ones a tiny bit too much. Okay, almost there now. So it's all looking good. So everything's nice and neatly aligned there. We're just going to push the top piece into position now, and then I'll catch up with chat briefly afterwards. We might have a doggo on stream in a second because I can hear her coming into the room. Okay, there we go. That's all now pushed in place. Hello. No, about half an hour early. My wife's now asking me what I'm doing.
Stops the internet working properly, which means I can't watch TV.
Oh, it doesn't stop the internet working. I'll fix it later on for you. Sorry guys, my wife's just come into the room. Is dielectric bad for springs? It's too thick for springs in my opinion. So you can see now guys that the 4 corner points are protruding through, so we're just going to pop the base on and tidy up from there. So in terms of the base, I'm not going to bother plugging this in. J-02 connector, you can see how that connects. Dead easy, just clips into place. And then we're just going to pop the top in place, pop a screw in one corner, and we're just going to start to hold this in. As I say, these are all Torx pieces. I just need to make sure I've got the right Torx bit. We're just going to screw this down so it's just finger tight, not so it's overly tight. Just start to pull the board together. We're then going to come diametrically opposed, come into this bottom corner, and again just do the same. Again, just finger tight, not overly tight. Just starting to pull the board together nice and evenly. And then again, we're going to do the last 2 as well. Just going to, just like so. And then the last one in the last corner. And then from here, once we've done this one, we'll then start to tighten it all up. Make sure everything's pulled together nice and neatly around all of the edges of the board. Just going to pop this down. Now remember, you are putting the gaskets under pressure here as well, so that's why it's slightly harder to screw. It's not like a normal board where you're not putting pressure on stuff. This is putting significant pressure against the gaskets, so it's always worth bearing that in mind. There we go, the board's all put together, nice and even. That one needs a little bit of tightening. I think we've probably just trapped a little bit of the gasket there. Anyway, look at this side, that's how the board will look. Nice and flush and even across all of the edges just there. Just going to have a look at this. I think we've just trapped a tiny bit of gasket, so I'm just going to undo these two slightly. Again, as I say, once I can get these all glued in place on the final finishes, we won't have this problem at all. So I'm just using a spudger to push it back in place. There we go. There we go, all nice and nicely put together. Okay, so that's the board put together, guys. You can see that that's all now nicely seated in place and in position. We're going to pop the pen rail back in, which has a nice resounding thunk. The board's all sitting pretty in terms of the gasket positioning, the PCB, the plate. Excuse the fingerprints, the brass. So there we go. Catch up with chat before we put some keycaps on this board and see what you guys are talking about. Is dielectric bad for springs? It's a little bit too thick, as I said before. Not related to the J-02, but what soldering irons are the top recommendations these ways? I have a garbage one. I recommend the TS100. It's been my go-to soldering iron for a couple of years now. Really, really good iron. Easy to buy replacement tips for. Dead cheap as well. Fix your internet for once at all. Well, I don't know why it's doing this. Sometimes, and maybe perhaps someone can tell me, sometimes the Wi-Fi turns itself off whenever I'm streaming, and it's a really bizarre thing that the Wi-Fi turns off. It's not my up or down pipeline, because I've got a gig down and 500 meg up or something like that. So it's definitely not the Wi-Fi itself, it's definitely the internet connection itself. But for some reason, whenever I'm streaming, it turns the Wi-Fi off on the router. Don't know why. And that's the problem that the wife's got right now. Okay, just scrolling through chat. Stabs clipping when your stabs are on the PCB. If on the plate, then you don't need to clip. Correct. Light shone through. Okay. I saw on Tehe taps that he also band-aids it. I personally don't. Please don't scratch aluminium. No, I won't scratch the aluminium. Band-aids is very subjective. Yeah, looking fantastic. It looks great, right, guys? Looks great. Look at that brass. Look at that brass middle showing through. All nice, neat, tidy. Brass everywhere. Gotta love it. Pretty hefty as well. I haven't weighed it, but it's somewhere in the region of, probably in a region of about, I don't know, 4 pounds, something like that. So what we're going to do now, guys, is we're going to put some keycaps on the board. For this, I will be using GMK9. So big shout out again to the mykeyboard.eu people. You can see their logo just down here in the bottom corner where I'm tapping. Thank you very much for donating this set to me, particularly for this build stream as well. So thank you very much, guys. Nice looking board, says Tuxkey. Thank you very much, my dude. Thank you. We're not going to go with any of these accent keys, just going to go with the straight 9s colourway. I think I prefer it that way as well. Huey is continuing the gift sub we got from Talisman Solutions. Thank you, Huey. Thank you very much for that. Literal Amegalos as well. This looks nice. Thank you very much, dude. This is my current board, the J-02. Do you know what? We're going to use an artisan for this one. Let's put another Cthulhu on there, because why the hell not? Sadly there's no UK ISO with this particular set, but there is ISO support, so I can't have the UK ISO keys for the Numero, but I do have the ISO support for the rest of the board, so that's going to look just groovy on this particular board. And then 10 minutes or so and we'll be doing the sound test. So if you guys have got questions about the board, if you guys have got questions about the group buy, please feel free to ask them now, to post them in chat now, and we'll start to take a look at them as soon as we can. Okay, we'll come back to the shift key in a second. A gig down, didn't even know it was available in the UK. Yeah, it's relatively recent. There's a local company that started to offer it to me. I live in just outside the edge of Bradford, in a little village called Shelf. Mr. Petro, actually this would be super cool to have different LU anode pen rails that you could match different keycap colorways. That may be an option. As I say, the pen rail files will be available for people if they do want to get their own pieces made. That's not going to be a problem at all. Copper as well. Yeah, I've got fibre to the house, Gouty. Fibre straight from everywhere up to the house, yeah. Oof, nines, I love it. Yes, this is the first time I've actually used nines. It's the first time it's been out of the box since it came, which is just over a week ago. Again, Necroman, Necrowoman, thank you very much, guys. I really appreciate your support, as always. Okay. Let's pop the ISO keys in position just here. So we've got this one just there. We should have key just here, and then I've got the alternate key just there. Just need to find the right shift key now. 1.25U shift key should be here. There it is. Panicked for a second then. I thought I wasn't going to be able to find that. Huey says, when can I throw money at you? Okay, so we'll talk about that towards the end of the build. Just because not everything is completely consistent on that yet. I do need to speak to both sets of vendors, talk it all through, but I do have some broad ideas and I can give you some details on that in a few minutes once I've put the keycaps on. Oops. Okay, there we go, and then we've got the 7U bottom row. Personally, you can disagree with me all you like here, but I like to use my arrow keys here rather than using the code or window keys or anything like that. And then, of course, we've got the 7U spacebar key for across the bottom as well. So there you go, guys. This is GMK9s on the J-02 with brass, with Fugthulu in the corner as well, which has kind of got copper and brass tones in it. I'll try and show you that, guys, a little bit closer up. There you go. There you go. Pen rail, magnetic, all held in place by magnets, does lift out. It's a solid lump of brass. And you can see the brass internal weight underneath the board just there as well. Nice resounding click back into place. In terms of the board, you can see the brass run all the way around the outside. USB-C, as you can see, dead center of the board there as well. Base of the board, nice black. Just going to put some rubber feet on this as well. One of the things I do want to change is the size of these slots to have it more accurate for the standard size bump-ons, so those will be changed as well. There's a few different things I'm going to change on the board. That's one of the key ones. So there we go, that's the bump-ons in place as well. So that's the board all put together. Let's show you next to the J01. I think I saw a request for that a second ago. This is the J01 and the J02 together. There's the J01 and here is the J02. It's the first time they've ever been seen together next to each other, but as you can see, that whole aesthetic has been passed across from the boards next to each other. You can see that the bezels mirror each other. The angle of the board is the same, the height of the board at the front is the same, just slightly different in height, just because of the way that this has got the bezel around the base to accommodate the arrow keys as well. So other than that, very, very similar. The pen rails are identical in terms of their thickness. They don't quite work because that one's a little bit longer than the other one, but they would both slot together if they were the same length. So there you go, guys. I hope that looks good from your perspective. You can see there that the brass runs all the way through on both of them. Very, very similar in terms of their design on the bases. There you go. You can see next to each other, they look very similar. And in terms of the J logo on the base, some dirt on that there. The J logo in place on both of them too. So there we go, so that's the J01 next to the J02. First time they've been seen together. Okay, let me move that to one side. There we go. Let's catch up with chat before we do the sound test, see what you guys think. Very handsome, class. I'm going to do a gold infill on your board. Maybe on my J-01, yes. That's my personal J-01. That's the one I won't be selling or doing a charity giveaway for. So yeah, that's my personal one. What a family photo. Yes. I like the layout of the J-01. Never seen it before. Yeah, the J-01 was my first board. It was very limited in terms of the group buy. There was only 15 of them. But the design aesthetic's been carried through to the J-02. And this board will be run in a more open group buy format. Typing test comparison. We'll be doing a typing test on this board in just 1 second. But yeah, GMK 9s on the J-02. Carbon fibre plate. Looking pretty good. Pretty happy with that. And all of the brass as well. Pretty hefty. Glad you guys like it. I'll do a sound test in a second. J-02 is begging for Olivia++ alphas next to the J-01. So the only problem with the Olivia++ alphas is that it won't support ISO. There's no key here for ISO as far as I'm aware, from what I've seen. So yeah. The sound test between the two, Mr. Petrov, won't be even because these are unlubed and they are lubed, so it's going to sound very different. And the board's kind of mounted slightly differently because of in the blockers on the J-01, there's kind of screw ports holding it together that go through the gaskets and through the plate and the PCB as well. So yeah, it's going to sound a little bit different. GOM says, hey, that's nice, thank you very much. J-04 said there should be a 40% board. There won't be a J-04. It'll move on to a different design language at that point, which is going to be the E range, named after my wife, whose name is Elspeth. So there you go. I don't think I've seen what you've seen. Oh right, okay. Maybe you've seen something more than I've seen then. Good to know. 10 strong. Thank you very much. So without much further ado, it's probably time to give this a little bit of a sound test. So I'll mute the music in the background. You guys probably can't hear it anyway. Move this underneath the microphone. So this is the first time I've heard it as well as you guys. So this is the J-02 with inks on a carbon fibre plate, stock inks, with GMK 9's true isolation mount board. There you go, guys. I'm pretty damn happy with that. That sounds exactly what I wanted it to sound like. It's really nice, crisp and clean. You're very much hearing the noise of the switches, the noise of the keycaps, the noise of the plate. There's no transference of sound into the case. You can't hear any resonance or any ping. It sounds really good and nice and clear. The echo chamber underneath is creating a great sound profile from the keycaps as well. Yeah, really happy with that. It sounds exactly what I wanted it to sound like. If you want to hear the J-01, this is potentially what it might sound like with lubed switches. I'm not going to do a full typing sound test, but let me I can hear a little bit of difference. It's slightly deeper in sound on this, but that's just the lube difference. I can feel the difference as well, because these feel a little bit lighter because they're 78 grams and these are stock. But yeah, it sounds very similar in terms of the switch and the keycap. You've definitely... It's definitely quieter. Unlubed sounds better. Interesting. I think this sounds a little bit better in real life. You're probably missing some of the nuances of the sound on the microphone. I do think it sounds better in real life, but I really do like the sound of this board. Yeah, so there you go, guys. Mic distance might be helping as well. It's difficult to get them both close together with 3 keyboards on the desk, but yeah, I'll do some proper sound typing techniques, and you guys will be able to listen to those at some point at your leisure and do some sound comparisons as well. But that is the J-02, guys. Really proud of this. Thank you very much for letting me show you. I'm really, really happy with how the board looks, how even it all sits, how nice and flush it sits. Satanicist, thank you very much for being a big help and doing all of the design in terms of CAD work for me, and turning my pen and paper designs and the thoughts in my head into something that I can actually go and get machined really nicely and well done. So in terms of the other things that I wanted to talk to you about, guys, so it is going to run on mykeyboard.eu and Canon keys, so that's the EU and the US proxy. In terms of units of availability, I want it to be more open than the J-01, which only had 15 units available in the group buy, and there's only 17 of them in total. At the minute there's only one J-02, but I do want there to be more of this board available. I need to speak to the vendors and work out how many boards we're actually going to sell and what that's going to look like, but I don't know what that's going to be in terms of a number just yet. In terms of timeline, realistically it's going to be the new year before we actually start the group buy. Given January is always a difficult month, I'm thinking it's likely going to be February where the group buy runs, and it will probably run for a couple of weeks in February and be open depending on how many boards we've got available. So if you are intending to buy one of these, February is going to be the month. I just need to work out all of the rest of the details around that. So yeah, you heard it first, folks. Canon keys, my keyboard, February, J-02. So that's it. So let me know, guys, if you've got any questions. Gout is saying that keyboard echo chamber, not that type of echo chamber, it's more of a sound echo chamber than an actual meme echo chamber, but there you go. It sounds really good. Yep, really happy with the sound. It sounds great. Can you slam both space bars a bit from the left to the right? There you go, sounds the same all over. Yeah. Probably needs a little bit more lube on that actually, because I did a really quick lube job. Mods sound amazing. Yeah, I'm really happy with the mods. Really like the sound of the spacebar on the J-02. Yeah, same. It sounds really good. No doubts about it. It sounds really good. Sound is the #1 feature that was designed into this board, as well as having all of the brass. I am going to have a look into having this nice and flush and just have it as an accent piece rather than having it as an actual pen rail, because it's designed to be a pen rail and hold things in place. So I will take a look at that as well at some point. Thanks again to Elliot for doing a great PCB design. We'll work around to get the actual PCB working, so the next time we do a build stream we'll do the wing keyless build when that prototype top gets to me, and we'll actually have a working PCB at that point, and we'll also do a HHKB one at some point too. So as I say, it will be the new year when this runs. I'm thinking likely February is the current timeline, so it's a few months away, but that does mean that we don't have to rush before Christmas. I don't want to rush this. It's going to be realistically November before I can do the build streams with the other tops. By that point it's then leading into December and January where people have got too much to spend for Christmas and New Year. Don't want to hit anyone's wallets at that kind of time. So realistically it makes more sense to wait until February for this to run. So there we go. Elliot says, let's hope I get a job by February. Elliot will sort something out, I'm sure. You're doing a few options too, right, for tops 10 strong. Yes, there will be the straight 60. There will be HHKB, which will be this layout here that you can see there. And there'll also be wing keyless, which will be this layout. If you excuse my own phone, better not do that. I didn't mean to do that. It will be wing keyless, which will remove these 2 keys. So yeah, there we go. Joining the group buy will be first come first serve. I need to work that out with the vendors, how we're going to do it, whether we're going to do raffle or first come first serve. Whatever we agree will be the same across both vendors. I don't want different vendors doing different things, so we will work that out. We'll do a custom pouch bag for it. Won't fit a standard one, right? I don't know, I haven't tried it. It probably won't because it's a little bit deeper. Normal 60% will probably end where the inside of the brass rail is, but I'll definitely take a look at that, and if not, I'll be able to give you some dimensions to have one made. What modifications to do for my keyboard? Got the DZ60 with GAT Yellow's milk housing. Clip and lube the stabilizers, lube the switches, and that's about it. That's all you need to do. That's all you need to do. Good timing, yes. Yellow Milky is my favourite switch. I'm sure it'll be worth the wait. Great job, Jay. Thank you very much. Peripheral installers want every board made by Satanicist. Yes, you do. Yeah, if I don't get this board, I shall cry. Okay. Well, we'll try and make sure that there's as many available as possible. I don't have any. I do want to limit it in terms of an actual number to make it clear how many there are, but I don't know what that number is going to be just yet. I just need to work all of that through. If you have got any more questions, guys, now's the time. I'm in love with this board already. I don't want to stop typing on it. Tenstrong says top Clack springs, A superlube oil, B grease, C 205 grade 0, D 3203. I don't personally use any of those. I use Krytox 104 or 106 on springs pretty much exclusively. Don't like greases on them. I much prefer an oil. It lubes across the spring better. So that would what I would do there. What sort of cost is the aim for the sale? I want it to be as close to 500 or under as possible. I don't want this to be a stupidly expensive board at $700, but that is something that I do need to work through with the vendor. So I want it to be 500 or less, but I need to work that through with the vendors and see where the pricing comes out. All depends on how many we agree to sell, what the MOQ becomes, what that looks like in terms of economies of scale with manufacturers. There's a lot of moving parts to this. It's not just a normal board. There's a lot of brass, a lot of machine time on the brass. The gaskets are not particularly cheap to produce because of the way they go around all of the board. The carbon fibre plates as well, you know, as anyone knows who's joined my group for carbon fibre plates, they're not the cheapest. There's all sorts of different accoutrements. The magnets, unless we change that and turn them to bolts and hold this in by bolts, the magnets aren't particularly cheap as well. They do add significant cost to that. All adds up, you know, I mean, it's only a few dollars here for each part when it starts to add up. Also, I want to use custom titanium screws for this, so yeah, that's the plan as well. So it sounds like my dog's being naughty, so she's getting told off outside. But yeah, so it is going to be not a cheap board. It's not going to be a $300 board, sadly. It's going to be quite expensive. There's a lot of parts that go into making it up, but I do want to try and make sure that the price is as low as possible to lower that entry barrier as well. So I hope that makes sense. I hope everyone's comfortable with that. Very nice looking board. When I first thought, I thought it was missing something coming from the J-01 with the logo in the bottom left, but it's really grown on me. Thank you. Yeah. If you're getting, I want a 965. Yes, I want 165. I want to get one. I don't care on the colour. I just want one. So curiosity, when talking to the vendors in different regions like EU for example, how is this made, which vendor to go for? It all depends on what the vendors want to do, who I'm comfortable working with, what they can offer, what I can offer them. The My Keyboard EU guys have been great to me. They've sponsored me a number of times, you know, and I've worked with them a lot. I get on well with them. UPass I know from being in Seattle a couple of months ago, so I know him really well. It just makes sense for us to work that way. Jay getting the Equinox. I already have one. Hold on a second, I'll show you it. So this is my Equinox. I already have one. Taking the artisan off of it, but yes, I already have an Equinox. So there you go. Love this board. It's a great little travel board. So yes, if you're interested in getting one, have a look at that. As you can see, it's got a fair amount of flexibility to it. It types really nicely. Lots of interesting stuff. You can go back and watch my build stream of that, which was a couple of months ago. Okay, so I think that's it. Oh, Tenstrong, what differentiates it something like 104 from 205 for grade 0, or rather, what does the first number in the series imply? So 104 is an oil, 204 is a grease. So oils and greases do different things. Oils are significantly more runny, but they coat things better. Greases are better at staying in place. All depends on what the use case is. So yeah, so there we go, guys. That's the J-02. You saw the J-01 as well. A full isolation mount, GMK9s. I'm in love with that sound already. There we go. I think we're going to call the stream there. I need to go and see what my dog's done, because it doesn't sound like that's too pleasant an update. So I'm going to go and do that. This video will be on YouTube shortly. If you guys have got any questions, please reach out to me. Please go and have a look at my project's Discord server for more updates on this and the Geek Hack thread. And if anyone's got any questions, reach out. But I'm going to have to jump off and say goodbye to you now, guys. But thank you very, very much for my last build stream before I go away. I'll be on Top Clack on Thursday, and I'll be taking a week off, a couple of build streams off, and I'll be back middle of October. But thank you very much for your time, guys. I appreciate it. Thanks again to Satanicist, Elliot, and Martin for your help with all the designs and parts of this board. Yankart as well for helping me source the gaskets. And I'll speak to you all again soon. But thank you very much for your time, guys. Thank you. Bye-bye.